All right, next topic is the Fire Emblem Fates Nontroversy, and I'm calling it that because it is in fact a Nontroversy, but I feel we should talk about it because there are a lot of passionate fans, Nintendo fans in the world, and I feel that we've been asked, what do you think of this? So, in case you haven't been keeping up, in Fire Emblem Fates, a scene was removed that was considered to some degree, controversial. Game localization is the process of taking a product from one territory and adapting it so it does well in another territory. That's just what they do. They also removed the face-touching, petting minigame as well. That's gone for the same reasons. The culturally, overall, that would not be a cool thing here at the end of the day.
Whereas in Japan, when you're walking around, you just touch around in people's faces. It's totally fine.
Well, people don't touch each other, but that's a whole other topic. To go into a few details on the scene itself that was removed, there is a female character who is attracted to other women, but she can't keep her composure around them. It is a popular Japanese trope that when someone is attracted to someone else, or the opposite sex in some cases, whoever they're attracted to, they can't really keep it together. And so there is a quest line, there's a conversation where a magic powder is used in her drink so that she basically sees all the genders inverted. So she doesn't feel strange around women anymore because they look like men.
Which is already kind of creepy. In American society, when somebody puts something in your drink, it is never a good thing.
No, never at all.
Secretly so.
And it is it comes off in an unsettling way as something like gay conversion therapy, which is not cool.
Totally.
Yeah, that's not okay.
Which is a hoax.
Yes. So this seems like it's out for good reasons, and yet there is some outcry of censorship for you kids. This is self-censorship because Nintendo is ultimately doing this themselves. They're not being asked by anyone to change this.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a decision
There's
they
no
made
petition
internally.
or anything going on.
Yeah,
that
the U.S. Obama didn't send a letter and said the face touching, it's got to go. That didn't happen. All right. That wasn't the case.
That's pretty good.
Could you imagine
Obama?
that guy's list of things to deal with? He would bump everything off the list to do that.
But I think some folks are really bent out of shape about this, and I can get why. I'm not here to judge.
Fans,
we're not here to judge.
But fans, we spoke with Megan earlier. Fans of anime who are very mumuch used to kind of the quirkiness and the strangeness, and sometimes the kind of effed upness of Japanese topics and themes. They want to see Japanese culture and content at its fullest.
Yeah.
And so the removal to them is scary, right? Because that's where you end up with replacement of something that someone who understands Japanese culture understood, but you're removing it and, in quotes, dumbing it down. Now, I'm not on that side. I felt the face touching thing was weird, right? When I played it, it seemed cloyingly, awkwardly, this is the closest you come to sex in this game. Kind of it was strange.
It was very suggestive to a degree.
It was very suggestive.
Really weird. Yeah.
But at the same time, when I hear it was removed, I was like, oh man, I'm kind of bummed out because the animations were so good. When the characters talk, they did such a nice job with the,
You are very up close with the other character for context.
But
they're right up
very
in your screen.
beautifully rendered faces and reactions
that game
and
has
voice
a great art
acting.
style. Yeah,
and
you're
so
right.
my immediate question is if that's gone, does that mean that aspect of relationship building is gone? No, that's still in.
That's
right?
still in. So you can invite people to the place where the face touching happened. Doesn't happen anymore.
The weird sessions.
But instead, the benefits of that still exist in the game. So support conversations can still be triggered.
But is it interactive or is it just you invite them and boom, you get the bonus?
I think you invite them and it's the bonus.
You're not cleaning their magic lamp.
So Nintendo hosted an RPG event that was pretty cool. We got hands-on with Fire Emblem Fates.
Yeah.
We didn't get to test it out, but we asked, and we were told the benefits were so they just didn't detail how.
Yeah.
But ultimately it does not affect how this game is going to play. Ultimately, they still capture a lot of what the core game is, which is it's an awesome Fire Emblem. Even if it is split into 3 pieces, I find each one kind of fascinating because it's okay, well, what happens on this chapter and what's the difference and who am I going to see? These gut-wrenching decisions where if I don't lose a character to death and permadeath, I might lose a character just because I picked the Hoshido instead of the Noor.
Right.
And
that happens.
As you grow attached to some of these characters, that's gut-wrenching. That I think this is a really smart direction for this game to take.
Yes, and so that's where, talking about the face touching thing again, it's it was one of those moments where you're up close and personal with another character, and so, I hope there is some sort of proxy for that there is something where you can still see the beautiful face animations and kind of get a sense for who the characters are. And to be fair, there was no skill involved there, right? Like you had to find the right spot on their forehead or their necklace or wherever to rub in order to build the relationship.
Yeah.
It was not skill based. Like anyone could do it. It was kind of silly.
I mean, it was like half the puzzles in something like Hotel Dusk or something, where
Yeah,
you
but-
rotate an object, look for a glimmering light, tap it, and
But
yeah.
not even that. It was like the simplest interaction possible. So I'm not sad that's gone, but I want to make sure that they have something that kind of replaces that relationship building in a
or at
meaningful
least still gives
way.
you the benefits of the conversations that
yeah.
happen afterwards,
And-
because the affinity between
Right.
characters is very
Exactly.
important to Fire Emblem.
And what the character says in that scene was not deep or moving in any way. They were more like surprised that you're touching their face and stuff. It's like
Okay.
what anyone would be. Now for the gay conversion scene, it's not going to play in the US.
Not at all.
Right? Like
Right.
or Europe. And I used to watch a lot of Japanese TV shows, and Japan's attitudes. Granted, this was in the 90s, but Japan's attitudes towards homosexuality were very different. They had a lot of jokes. It was kind of like like famous talk shows like Beat Takeshi, like the guy you've seen in movies like Sonatina, like he plays Yakuza a lot, right? Like he'd be dressing up as a gay guy and like prancing around in a dress and going like, oh, and like. You did that in the U.S., people would be like, "What the f is going on?" Whereas in Japan, at least at the time, was still, not that it's the right thing, but it's just so normal to see that kind of over the top craziness
Well, and that's not
in theater and television.
It's also wrong. Like you are basically
Right.
making fun of a culture or a subsect of people, which at the end of the day, like that's not cool.
Exactly, and so I
matter
think
where they come from.
But there have been changes in Japanese society where that has changed as well. And I talked about this before, right? Like when I lived there were signs on some bars saying "No foreigners," right? Like
Right.
imagine that happened here in Japan. It wasn't a big deal for a long time, and it has become a bigger deal now, right? And I think Japanese society is changing, and so sometimes you will encounter something that is not meant as art. This is not an expression, and it's not teaching you a story saying, "Hey, this is wrong or right." It's just it's a little thoughtless,
Yeah.
and it's not detected when it's put in those games because those societies are different. And like you have to change the games,
Right.
Yeah, no,
Because,
that's what
you know-
localization is. And if you're up in arms about this, like, no offense, but this song ain't about you. Like, there's
Yeah.
more to this story than just your interests. And it may be coming from a passionate place. You just want to be more involved and play the game as it was intended. You love Japanese culture. You love certain things about it. And you think that's fine. But I'm sorry, this is not just about you.
Also, like, if you're upset about this, take the time that you would have spent writing a really angry letter or message board post to learn Japanese.
Yeah.
And import the original version of the game and play the homophobic thing you love to play.
Yeah.
Like, there's plenty of uses of your time. Like, import a 3DS. Play that version if that's what you want.
Yeah.
Like, and also, like, I don't really buy the excuse that it's always been like this. Like, I read that a lot in scenarios like this. Like, but it's tradition in Japan. Like, tradition at worst is a mistake that someone annualizes.
Yeah.
You know, it's basically just
That's a good way to put it.
It's just doing the same. But it's doing a bad thing over and over. And
It's also not true. I mean, the attitudes towards homosexuality in ancient Japan, like in the Edo period, they were pretty open. If
Right.
you read classic Japanese literature, I happen to have studied it in Japan. So like you go back to the days of like the pillow books, Seishonagon, like Tale of Genji stuff.
Sure.
It's very open, and like a lot of the lead characters had relationships on with both genders, and it was just kind of matter of factly and not ridiculed. And I think things have changed over the years in Japan. So it's not that it's traditional. Japan has changed so many times, and there was this phase, and you can see the remnants of it in modern anime and in games as well. And I guarantee you, like there are people at Nintendo in Japan who like look at that scene in that game and they said, "Yeah, let's not do that again in the next game."
Well, I
right?
mean, it's
just like Disney's looking at Song of the South and says, "It exists. We can't erase that, but if we're going to do another Song of the South, it's not going to be like that."
Yeah.
right?
And then you could be like, well, why don't you make it racist like the old one? Because we can. But I mean, America's not exempt to this stuff. If you look at,
I can't believe you just said that.
no, it's
Keep
true.
going.
If you look at something like In Living Color, right, which was the '90s sitcom run by the Wayans brothers, it had those two "It's Raining Men" characters who were these like pseudo gay movie
Men on
reviewers.
film, yeah.
If you look at a movie like Get Hard, which is a Will Ferrell movie that came out a year and a half ago. It's incredibly homophobic. And I think when they were making it, they were like, it's the 90s and we can get away with this kind of stuff. But the audience reception was like, this is not funny.
Right.
Like these jokes are old, they're boring, and it's not funny. It doesn't work anymore. So I think you still have a lot of that holdover from creators and creative types who try to pull from those old tropes and ideas. And that's not just a Japanese thing. That happens all over the universe. But I think moving past that is okay. And it doesn't mean that people are overly sensitive, which is what I see to everything like that. It just means that it wasn't that great. Like I see the same thing with comedy where people are like, oh, what, is that joke offensive? No, it's just not funny.
Yeah.
Make your joke funny and then you can go anywhere with it. Make your story interesting and you can do anything with it.
Yeah, and I would say that if you understand Japanese culture and you're that invested in game concepts like that and you want to experience them, like they're not erased, right? You can find them in the Japanese version. You have to put a little bit more money in it into it to get the Japanese 3DS in this game. I can tell you it's not worth it. None of
Especially not now.
You know, the story elements and the gameplay, it's just not good enough for it to be something that we should lament. I get the concept of, hey, let's not censor art is a valid one. But you have to also make a distinction. You can't just, put the label art on everything that is created and attach value to it and say it needs to be preserved. Like, I do think there are nuances.
There's also
Nintendo's selling a product. This is not art. Let's go there.
Yeah, this is their own thing too.
Yeah.
Really?
Well,
to an extent, some of it is. I shouldn't have said that.
No, but
Keep
I mean,
going.
like, let's give the benefit to anybody who's attempting to grow or not self-censor, but to sort of like evolve and change. Like if you listen to like even IGN podcast 6 years ago, like I know I used to say the R word a lot, like it was nothing. I said it all the time. And then 3 years ago I made a conscious decision to stop saying it. And I didn't tell you to stop saying it, or you guys don't say it, but I didn't say to the audience, hey, I hate you. Like I used to smoke cigarettes and I quit. I don't walk by smokers going, put that out. I keep to myself.
Are you not from San Francisco? I thought everyone here does.
A whole lot of judgment in
Do I
these
look like I'm
streets.
from San Francisco? But I think it's like it's okay to grow and it's okay to acknowledge your mistakes and keep moving. And that's like you shouldn't chastise a company for doing that or a person for doing that. Like allow them to have that.
And you called it a nontroversy. Like I wonder how
think it
many
is a
people
nontroversy.
actually seriously are offended by the omission or are upset about it. I think it's fewer people than you think.
Well,
it's
just like
the
the,
local minority. That's the
it's
internet
just
for
so
it.
more people wrote the story on that. So there was a story recently about the Deadpool movie that's coming out, right? And it's rated R. And Mother wrote a story saying,
that one was hilarious.
Yeah, she made a petition saying, I want my son to see this movie, and they should make a PG or PG-13 version of it.
Like the comic.
More people publicize that story than actually sign that petition. Like there's probably 1,500 articles about that petition, and there's maybe 1,100 people who signed it.
Because it's funny. That's like me saying Quentin Tarantino redo Pulp Fiction because my
it's
4-year-old wants to see it.
Because not everything has to be for everyone, and that's okay.
For sure.
But I think a lot of the times nowadays we get caught up in the people are mad. What people? 2 people on Twitter? 4 people on Facebook? That's not people. That's just a small group of people. Like, let's not take that and turn this into this massive thing. It's really not.
Yeah,
like this is not as big as an issue, and that's why I'm totally okay with you calling it a controversy.
And to close this out, if you are offended by this, I just want to say, do not take the time to harass or bother people over this. It's becoming a thing. I think you should just let this one go because at this point you're not changing anything.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm happy to hear opinions about it.
You
right?
can always
like
make
if you
a
wanna,
case, but
if you want to
don't
email
harass.
us at
Email us at
nvc@ign.com.
Yeah.
We didn't mean to come across it as preachy, but
No,
it's like one of those subjects that crops up once in a while. Where like you just got to realize that there are differences between cultures and it's okay to make adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's incredible for a company or a person to stand up and go, "Oops."
Yep.
There's
All right.
tremendous value to that.